the Epic Pro 95 Premium Carbon Paddle from Black Project. I'm Ruben from SUPboarder and I've been using and I'm going to give you a review of this paddle. So a bit about Black Project before we get onto the paddle. Black Project are a company that's been founded on the North Shore of Maui. They originally started making high quality windsurf fins, and then as the SUP market progressed they've moved into making quality SUP fins, and now they've come up with quality paddles. A little bit about the Epic Pro 95 from Black Project. The blade is full carbon, full 3K carbon, and the shaft as well. Its size is 610 square centimetres or 95 square inches. It's basically made with a nice red ABS edge around the blade, which is more durable, helps on impacts if you have any sort of altercations with your paddle on the board and stuff. We've got 3 Black Project paddles that were sent to us. The reason they're 3 is because all the shafts are different. These are very much a customizable paddle. So you can basically get a stiff shaft, a medium shaft, or a flex shaft. So we'll go on to those in a minute, why there's differences. And also you can get customized, you can get a T grip for the top of your paddle, or you can get a palm grip. It comes just in over 400 grams in weight, which is pretty light, and they retail in the UK at £260. So that's the specifications for the paddle. Let's talk about our thoughts and our first impressions of the Epic Pro 95. Okay, this is a paddler's paddle, designed specifically for people who can paddle. Okay, the reason why you need to have a basic good paddle stroke to start using this sort of paddle is because the entry to the paddle, when you put the paddle in the water, it's first hitting this part of the blade. This part of the blade is virtually flat. Okay, so this is where the flutter and the control of the paddles comes into play. If you're a bit sloppy with your paddle strokes, let's say, and you plant your paddle and pull back really quickly without really holding the power in your bottom arm, the arm which is nearest the blade will tend to flutter. It will tend to creep around. And this is until the blades are fully initiated and it's at the dihedral here, which is further up. From the V here, then the paddle takes control and pulls through the water nicely. So it's sort of paddle, if you plant it in the water, you engage the stroke fully, and then you pull back, it'll be absolutely fine. If you plant and pull and be really snappy and a bit hasty with the paddling, it will flutter and it will strike around and maybe even strike the board. So it does teach you to break your stroke down, take a bit more time, plant the paddle really nicely, and then pull back your stroke. So that's why it's a very good race paddle. I've been banging out some miles and getting some down the coast and stuff, and this paddle really does perform well. In the surf, it works okay too. I find the surf with this sort of paddle with a very flat tip on the blade is a bit of a personal preference. I prefer a blade with a little bit more kick because I'm riding smaller boards and I'm not really concentrating too much on my paddle strokes. I'm trying to work out how to stay on the board and catch the wave. So I prefer a paddle with a little bit more kick, a little bit more positive feel when I plant the paddle in the water. So basically I'm not planting the paddle as efficiently as I would if I was racing or cruising. The blade size of the paddle is very nice. It's high aspect ratio, so it's quite a long blade. It's actually quite a relatively big blade. It's 95 square centimetres, 95 square inches or 610 square centimetres is actually a relatively big blade. Most sort of blades, sort of average sort of rider, 80 kg sort of weight would be on a 575 averagely. Obviously it's personal preference too. So it is quite a big blade, but actually because it's long and thin and high aspect ratio, it does feel really light and doesn't feel like a big blade at all. We've been sent the 3 in just different shaft stiffnesses. So we've got the flex, the medium, and the stiff. I got on with the medium. Okay, there's a guy who's been riding it, who's a bigger guy, he's probably 95 kg, he got on with the stiff. And we've got some guys and girls that were riding it who were lighter and they got on with the flex. It is a personal preference thing. Generally, it's a body weight thing. So if you're a big guy, just go for the stiff. I wouldn't even bother looking at the medium or the flex. And obviously, smaller, don't even look at the stiff one, look at the medium or the flex. So it's a nice way you can personalise your paddle, and it's quite nice to be able to do that sort of thing. Another thing I really personally like, especially when you're trying to put the hammer down or catching some waves, is the ribbed finish on the paddle shaft. Some companies do it, some companies don't. I find it's great because otherwise I actually benefit from surfing. I actually spend time waxing my paddle to give them more grip. With this sort of paddle, you don't need to, so it's a bit more of a grippier surface. So that's nice. And also with the handles, you've got the T grip or you've got the classic palm grip. T-grip's generally a bit more for surfers, so you can grab hold of the paddle and surf and stuff. I actually use the palm grip in the surf. I don't really, it's a personal preference thing as well. So the tunability of the paddle when you buy the paddle is fantastic, to be able to sort of pick your stiffness of your paddle shaft, pick your handle. We do really like that. The finish of the paddles is perfect. As I do on all the videos, we look at the blemishes and looking at if there's any air bubbles and things like that. Black Project always aim themselves at doing a premium quality product, whether it's their fins or their windsurf fins or their paddles, and they have done that with these 3 paddles. We've got 3 paddles that are straight off the factory and they're perfect, so no complaints there. Okay, is there any negatives to these paddles? Performance, no. Price, no. It's a lot of paddle for your money. There's only one slight negative, and it's not really negative. It's the hard weariness of the paddles. It's nothing to do with the actual performance of the paddle, or the blade and the carbon. It's just if you have little key scratches or little sand scratches, it does show up on the tips of the paddles quite easily in like a little white line. It's nothing to do with the performance and nothing to do with the strength of the paddle, compromised in that sense. It's just something you're going to have to be careful of and look after your paddle, and maybe make sure you've got a paddle bag and make sure you bung it in the car, that you're not just shoving it in the car like that. So that's one thing to look out for, just end up looking after your paddle a bit more. But as this paddle is a performance paddle for a paddler, it shouldn't really be an issue. Okay, so the SUPboarder verdict for the Black Project Epic Pro 95. It's a paddler's paddle. If you're looking for a paddle to move away from the glass paddles, to think, right, I'm going to try and concentrate on my stroke work and get more out of paddling, be a more efficient paddler, this is a really good paddle to look at. If you want to just get out and flap and catch some waves and not really think about your paddling, maybe look for a paddle with a little bit more forgivingness, a bit more curve on the tip at the end. So it's a paddler's paddle, super lightweight, very good value for money. Does mark up a little bit on the scratches, so you're just going to have to look after it, but that shouldn't be a problem because you're obviously a competent paddler. Otherwise, it's a good buy. So the SUPboarder verdict for the Black Project Epic Pro 95. A paddler's paddler, a paddler's paddler?